What's up, everybody? HMB live show today here, joined at 12:30 with a guest that our local market probably has not seen just yet, but we're joined with Shane Torres, and we've decided that we found it really interesting on this show that we've kind of covered the span of the entire Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Maryland area. So we all have a really good pulse of what the big players in this area are doing with some of, we've got guys like Mike McCann on, top realtor in the nation from Berkshire to Keller Williams. But we are joined with somebody in a different market that's an extremely high producer named Shane Torres. So Shane is also with roadto20million.com, which I'm going to bring up with the shared screen feature, which actually I'll do it right now because I've just been loving using this feature, Shane. So I'm going to put this up, and yeah. So Shane, introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you're about, and what you do in your marketplace, where you're located, where you do most of your business, and just some background.
Yep. So Shane Torres, I am in central Iowa, Des Moines, around the Des Moines area. Been in business for a little over 10 years at Remax Concepts. Started as an individual agent. I'm now one of the co-owners. Manage a pretty high producing team from Iowa standards. And then I've got a few other things that I do as far as, you got up here my coaching platform, Road to 20 Million, and different development companies and stuff I have at this point. So nowadays, a lot of what I do is just managing all the different businesses and systems that help manage the people.
Do you like that, or do you like that part of it, or do you not? Because I spent a lot of years in the operating end of it, and some days are really rewarding and some days are really frustrating. That's what I found.
Yeah, I actually do like it, and you're right. There are days that might be more frustrating than others, but going through what I went through prior to get into real estate, and losing my construction company, and having to go Chapter 7 and almost foreclosure, it takes a lot to get me frazzled nowadays. So I mean, doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's just not as easy as it used to be. So.
And that's a good. So I always like touching on. So I've been doing this for 12 years. You probably got to have that fun ride right when the market turned in 08. I'm guessing from what you're telling me, or right around that time. Yeah. And all the guys that I talk to and girls that I talk to that have been around, like, we've all taken our licks. Like, that's part of succeeding. I don't really care what anybody says. Nobody gets a flawless run to the top, without taking a few hits. And you become like, I have found you become like the scars are deeper, and it's a lot. You're just battle tested. It's the only way I can describe like the conversation you could have with somebody that's been battle tested and then came back. So a lot of guys that back during that time, you probably remember, were not able to make the move back up. They weren't able to come back from that. So the ones that did, such as yourself, it's really hard. You're bulletproof, and you look at this situation, I'm sure, that we have going on right now with, the world, and just like me, you go, okay, like, I've seen this before, a version of it, not obviously the COVID-19, but I've seen the version of the downturn. I've seen what this looks like. I've seen what happens next. I've seen who gets washed out. I understand what's about to occur. So, to really break my spirit, so to say, it would be impossible. I was just saying to Ryan yesterday on our podcast, or on our show, that, unless you collapse the dollar, unless it all ends, I'm pretty comfortable saying I can get through, anything. So talk to us about like how your resilience has been built up, and like what you're seeing again for the second time right now.
Yeah. So, I've been having a lot of those conversations too, because a lot of people, I got into business in May of 2009. So right when everything was just, collapse was happening between late 08 and 09. And so I have seen that side of it, and that's, the kind of the point of my journey, is how I got, to the top percentiles within a 3-year period. But there are some similarities to what we're seeing now, but it's, like you said, it's still different. It's how people are approaching it. And I am using what happened back then as a example of how to motivate people and keep them moving forward right now. So as an example, it'll go out later today. I have a video that I did for yesterday, and it was that, you mentioned no one gets to the top without hard times or without help, but it was a story that I shared of the first 2 months in real estate of a very vulnerable moment that I had that I actually, it took me 8 years to even share that with my wife, because it was just one of those extreme vulnerable moments that, ego, men, we're not going to share those things. So I did that. Will go out today because I feel right now that a lot of people can relate to that. But what I found in going through what I went through back then, whether you want to call it resilience or whatever it is, my priorities weren't in line. I was basically working for money, and that was about it. I wasn't a good father. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good friend. And it helped me just to reevaluate things. So that was the whole, I feel, the ultimate reason of why I lost everything. It was to be realigned with my priorities. But since then, I know no matter what happens now, as long as I have my family and my my faith and my health, I can get through anything. There are far worse things that could happen. There are people right now that are going through things that and that could be listening to this that I could never imagine. And so I keep that in mind, in perspective. Is one of the things I say to myself and to others a lot is it could always be worse. So as far as my perspective goes, I went to the bottom, but I learned a lot of lessons out of it.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. So I know, you and I didn't really bump into each other till about 2 weeks ago. So the chances that you've seen the show would have been very slim at this point. But so there's no it's not like Shane's been watching the show and decided to come up with that answer, because the reason you say that answer, the very first guest we had on the show, and it's been a theme for the top producers, the people that really know how to adapt through times like this. Mike McCann, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like, look, the way I won't forget it. He said, we're not storming shores of Normandy. We have running water. We have heat. It could be a lot worse. No matter where we are, it could be worse. And that's what everybody thinks. You go, it could be worse. And I think after you've seen some cycles, after you've been through some stuff in life that, really tests you, you look at this and go, I can sit, I can deal with being in my house and adapting to this moment. I think, I look at you're a high volume producer with a team. I'm sure you have agents that probably didn't join your, or not just agents, but like anybody, around your organization that hasn't joined the organization or really had a cycle under their belt. So like, how are you leading, guiding, and helping people, not panic, essentially?
Yeah. So, I mean, it like most, it's been interesting to just, take it day by day and adapt to every situation. I will tell you, knowing what I know about different markets where you guys are and then everywhere else around the country, we are in one of the areas that, as far as I'm concerned, we are very blessed. We are very fortunate. Our governor did not do a shelter in place. She listed essential businesses out right in the beginning, and real estate and construction and finance and all those good things were part of it. So we have been fortunate to be able to continue to operate. We have made changes. We have adapted a lot of virtual open houses, a lot more cleaning, a lot more sanitizing. Our front office doors are locked for appointment only. We were fortunate. We set ourselves up probably 8 or 9 years ago, just because it's the model we wanted, is to be primarily online and cloud-based. So we were able to adapt quickly and move all of our staff to work from home. But just letting everybody know, we've been doing a lot of Zoom like most people are doing, giving the facts, letting them know that business is still happening. If there are people who are super susceptible to health issues, we've been supportive of them, giving them facts on PPP programs, different things they might be able to get access to. But we didn't stop really doing anything. We took all our training virtual. We have our own real estate school, so we did that. That's been helpful. So for the most part, here anyway, it's just everybody's different on how they're looking at things. So we just take each individual person's situation and just help guide them through it. But I still fall back on the fact that we've been pretty fortunate in how, right or wrong, how people see it, how our governors handled things.
Have you noticed any impact in the flow of business? I mean, it sounds like you guys adapted pretty quickly. So things changed, but in terms of, like finances or sales and things like that, sounds like things are moving pretty okay where you are.
Yeah, they're pretty solid. I'll tell you that like Supra and stuff showings were down for a little bit, but I think that was just a lot of people leaving the doors unlocked and open, so you don't have to touch them when you walk in. Things are still moving. There's been a few record months now. Now it's not to say we won't see a lag here pretty soon, but we really haven't yet. Those who are actually adapted quickly and still stayed out to do business have done business. It's just, I think what it's done is brought to the forefront a lot of the technologies that we've always taken for granted, being virtual, video and things like that, and realize that you don't always have to be in person to get a deal done. I've shared a story that I sold my first house sight unseen to someone from California 8 years ago, and now it's just a common thing. Back then, it was really unheard of, and people didn't see it until they built it. Actually, they didn't see it until the day before they moved in.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's what we're saying is that the last 10 years or so, I guess 8 for you, it's been a slow creep over to the technology side. So people such as yourself who saw that coming a long time ago, you're good for this scenario, because right now it was just a hard switch saying this is now how real estate operates, just like that, literally overnight, right?
Right.
So you're set up to do that, which is great. And now we're just seeing a lot, especially in the New York Philly area, we're seeing people say, "Oh boy, I got to get on that boat," right? So
yeah, and I think that's going to continue. We're in the process. It was supposed to be in July anyway, but our state was looking at doing virtual notaries. We'll be one of the first ones to have that. So we were positioned pretty well, technology-wise. Like I said, we've always been very technology advanced compared to most of our market. It's just a lot of people didn't take the time to adapt to it right away. Now they're being forced to, and it kind of accelerated. I think as people go forward, a lot of people are saying brick and mortar are going to go away. I disagree 100%. That's not going to happen. Will they adjust the layouts? Yes. Will they adjust the square footage? Yes. And we will do the same thing. We've always done that. We'll sit down when it comes time to look at buying a building or renewing a lease or something. We'll look at it and say, does this make sense? And if not, we'll get rid of it. And, we have the ability to go remote with our staff. We were looking at beta testing a program to where, depending on the departments, one staff person is in the office per day, and then the rest can work from home the entire time. This situation accelerated us and forced us to have to test it, and it's worked. So, that's probably going to continue to where, they currently will need about a quarter of the space that they have, because no one person's going to have their own desk. They're just going to have a station that they share, and then they'll work from home on their normal days. And there's parameters, they have to work with this for over a year, and they have to have their, their matrix set for production, but they've done it. I mean, they were forced to do it, and it's worked. So
that's interesting. I mean, all the things that the things that we don't know are going to change, the new reality being like those little intricate things, like especially in the commercial space, I'm sure, you've got quite a bit of commercial experience that, it's a space that was shocked the hardest at the moment, whether your market is good or not good. Obviously it took the hardest brunt of the hit right now. You're correct yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons I wanted to do these meetings. Like I'm talking to you, to me, everybody around me is locked down. Right. So, right. And you're going, hey, everything's okay where we are. Does that speak to specifically because you adapted, or your entire marketplace really hasn't taken any kind of crunch? Like it's the entire market, like other agents, other this, other that, they're all moving, or?
I think it's both. I think it's because we did adapt and we were ready to adapt. Now there are some others that adapted locally too, but I know others, especially as you get into the outlying areas of our market, into the more rural areas, or even over on the Illinois, Iowa border, where, Illinois did have some shelter in place, but Iowa didn't. So they had to get super creative. I know some of the businesses over there were still, paper-based, and they had to do full-on shutdowns because they weren't able to figure out how to adapt to the online platform quickly enough. So I do think it's a combination of both, that the market is going well, but that we also adapted quickly, because I know that others are not in the same scenario.
Yeah, I don't want to shift gears too hard here, but I am curious about the road to 20 million. So the road to 20million.com, which is on my screen, if anybody's, looking at it right now. Can you explain what I think I understand what it is, but can you explain what it is? Because I think it's a genius, idea. Yeah.
Yep. So the road to 20 million is basically the why and the how. I went from chapter 7 to a $20 million producer in 3 years. So what ended up happening, so these are things that I teach to our agents at our company anyway, but what ended up happening is that I would have a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, will you mentor me? Will you coach me? Will you do this? Will you do that? And I always said no. And then after a while of going around to different events around the country, I would listen to people and I would to talk and I would see what they're doing. And some of them didn't have the experience or the background that I had. So at one point, it just hit me. All these people have asked, why not? People can relate to this. I'm nothing special. It's just I worked hard at it. So I decided to, after I had a quick conversation with my wife, start Road to 20 Million, and started with an idea. And from there, which was a long process because I honestly had no idea what I was doing, I decided before people were actually going to believe in this and actually partake in this, that I needed to write a book. So I did. And that is so just a quick, first half of the book is highlights what I went through, everything that I learned, the struggles that I had in those first few years, from the chapter 7 to the bankruptcies to, not bankruptcy, I'm sorry, the foreclosures, to everything. But then the second half is very detailed how I did it. And then from there, if people want to go even further, there's the actual even more detail of what I call the roadmap, which is a 7-step process of different systems and things I put into place to leverage my time in business. Because like I said, my priorities were wrong. And I realized very quickly into this that I could be highly successful in real estate, but yet still not be a good person or a good parent or a good father. And I didn't want to do that. So the whole concept, to bring it back together for the road to 20 million, is one, I never set out to do 20. I never set out to be where I am today. I would just shifted and adapted as it's happened. But what might be my 20 million could be someone's 5 million. It doesn't matter what they want to accomplish. The principles are the same. It's just how you apply them. So, and then the overall goal, purpose that I have with this and anything I do now is for people to be able to have a good revenue that they might want, but yet still a life to enjoy it. So that is how Road to 20 Million came to be. It's actually, it sounded simpler in my head when I started it. And here, almost 3 years later, I'm still adding phases every month to it. And, at some point it'll be where I want it to be.
Yeah, I think that and I turned down a lot of those requests too, like the mentoring, requests frequently. I just wasn't really my thing. It's not really my thing, but I think of like part of it. I literally just had this conversation with a guy yesterday, a guy in our market that's very talented individual, and I said part of it was because I just was frustrated when people ask me things. I give them like an answer and they don't do anything with it. It wasn't ever about the money or like, I don't know, $1,000 an hour. Like it's never about that. I'm sure it's not about that for you, but that particular frustration point, when you're like, you literally give somebody the blueprint to go from 0 to 20 million without any cards punched. And I look at it and go, there's a $1 million bill on the ground. Can you pick it up? All you got to do is bend over. And then when they can't, it really frustrated me as an individual. So how have you dealt with that? Because you're obviously an action taker. So like,
Yeah, so I handle it a little differently depending on the people. Again, at our company, which said I'm a partner in and owner in, we have about 275 agents and 40 staff, something like that. All personalities are different, and I know that when I talk to them. There are some that ask for these things, and I give them to them. I have what I call my two answer rule. I'll tell you the answer to something twice, but if you don't write it down the first 2 times, if you ask me the third time, you're probably not going to like my response. And so I knowing that all we can do at the end of the day is provide the people with the tools and resources, and they have to take action. One of the things that I learned when I started this, and you just said it, is I can give people the exact 100% blueprint, which I do, and they still will not apply it to the same way that I did. So I've had people before say, "Aren't you worried about giving your stuff away in your own market?" Absolutely not. I challenge someone to beat us, and if they do, great. But I also, if they beat us, I know that something needs worked on. So I don't fear that, and I learned that from those first few years. What I realized is when I started talking to the producers around the country, like you guys are right now, they had one common theme. They were all givers, and they gave their information freely, and never feared someone taking what they've earned. So I've been in the room with a lot of powerful people in North America, and it's like I said, it's a common theme. They're givers and they're doers.
We have for sure noticed that.
That's our whole business model, right? Like our marketing is giving out information, which is it's what we do. There's no. I mean, all the secrets. You can go to our YouTube channel, get it all.
Yeah, right. It's all sitting there, and I'm not pulling any punches. And I think the only, you have a very approachable demeanor to you, and I can sense, you're a patient guy, probably firm and fair is probably the way to describe you if I had to guess, or people would
describe you. Firm and fair, yeah.
Yeah, so you're a more approachable individual probably than I would be in that kind of context. But what you're saying is really, really true. And with every producer around the country, no matter what their personality ended up being or what they've done thus far, independently, they've basically said exactly what you've just said to us over and over. We've been doing these now for, I don't know, what is it, Rye, 6 weeks?
2 months, 8 weeks, yeah.
8 weeks, every day for 8 weeks. We're looking at about 40 different,
it's a lot,
players in of your caliber, and they all sing the same song. It's the same thing, right? It's the same, and you're like, how do I get to that level? It's just they always give first. They're always just, what can I do to help? And it's not in a selfish, a lot of times people like to, and I just said that the sincerity is there, where I could actually, he would take, if I wanted to take him up on that offer, he'd be totally good. Like he meant that offer, and when you give out, what we have always found in building our business and so forth, when you just give out, you have no idea what's really going to come back to you. You really don't, but you just know after doing it time and time again, first of all, it feels better, right? It feels better than be asking. It always feels better to be giving. And then things just come back your way. They just do. Like the world revolves back towards you in a way, and it goes, hey, it works out for everybody. I feel good giving, and things come my way. And I'm sure that's, in essence, what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's all very true. It's just, I think it was like 2012, I started reaching out to a lot of the top producers around our market, and a few of them went and talked to me, and I'm like, what the heck, right? So I started looking at other people around the country, and they would talk, whether it be over in Virginia or Canada or Arizona, and then within 3 years, those people who went and talked to me locally, I surpassed. So,
that's a great observation.
Been in a pretty solid network with all those individuals that helped me back then. Now, so
I love it, man. Well, let me ask this, Shane. What where do you think we're going right now as a country? Let's stick to the real estate market, I guess. What do you think's coming next? I know it's completely speculation, and everybody's guessing.
Yep. So, and you're right, and and it is a speculation. I will go on record as saying is that I've been very optimistic compared to most. When this all first went down, even locally, there was a lot of people like it was doom and gloom, and I'm just like, listen, people. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, so let's not speculate what next week's going to bring. But I think what we're going to have happen locally and nationwide is that as these restrictions continue to be lifted, we're going to have a boom. When it comes to real estate, I think there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. Interest rates are still good. Yes, there are people that are hurting business-wise, financial-wise. But at the end of the day, similar to 2008, 2009, people who had the money to buy still have the money to buy. So that is my prediction of what's going to happen. And, you actually referenced the commercial world yesterday, and you're right. That actually did take a screeching halt locally. But I tell you what, interestingly enough, because we have a couple commercial buildings, the moment our governor actually released more restrictions on us yesterday from restaurants being shut down and stuff. The moment that those restrictions were lifted, I received 2 phone calls to lease out our space in one of our buildings.
Oh yeah, okay.
One of them was
Nice.
a fitness center, and they just got opened up yesterday. So I think people are just sitting and waiting. The things are still good. One of the things I think is, no matter what you look at political wise, and I don't get political, but one of the things I think is most interesting as to what happened is, for the first time in history, and granted it wasn't perfect, but for the first time in history, they did something not just for the big businesses, but also for the workers and the everyday, just on Main Street, if you will, people. That had never been done before. So I do think that's been a good thing that's happened. But yeah, I predict.
Is that in regards to the stimulus? I'm just.
Yeah.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
the unemployment stimulus, the PPP, just different programs that were out there nationally and locally. But yeah, that really hadn't been done before. You look in 2008, 2009, people, small businesses weren't being helped like that. It was just the big businesses that were too big to fail, whatever. But yeah, I predict a housing boom.
Okay. Well, I like it. I like always leaving on these on a positive note because it's been up and down, and like you said, we're in the epicenter of lockdown central. So it's a little crazy, but we are ready to be in business. We are all, fortunately, me and myself and Ryan, so we really haven't suffered in this particular industry we're in. So, but I feel for all the other people around us that I'm like, man,
right.
Come on, let's get back. But,
right.
So who knows what tomorrow brings? That's a good way to leave it, what you just said. Yep. And so Shane, if people wanted to get a hold of you, join your brokerage, become part of your team, go to the road to 20 million, like what's your easiest contact method for people?
You can, road to 20 million, get a hold of me there, or Shane Torres at remax.net, which is my, my Remax email. I'm easily accessible. Facebook. I will tell you, if you try to friend me, I actually had to, delete someone to accept your friend request.
I made the cut. I made the 5,000 cut. Perfect.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm maxed out there, but I'll make a way to get you in there. So. Yep.
All right, Shane. I appreciate it, man. You're an easy interview. You're a nice guy, and anybody that's going to be watching this can certainly learn from it. So I'm sure we'll do it again in the future. I'm sure we'll be doing round 2. We don't plan on stopping doing it. So I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye.